Hey guys, on this episode I have on a guest, Edma, and we sit down and we have a talk about addiction and overcoming that. And I talk about my own issues with my own addiction to alcohol and my addiction in general. I know if you've been listening to the podcast, you're like, Mike, didn't you tell a story about doing coke in Colombia? And I did. Or don't you tell a story about having a panic attack on weed? And I did. A lot of people give me shit that I'm not 100% sober, but I know where my addictions lie. And there are things I can do and then just be like, oh yeah, that sucks, and literally do it 2 times a year. And so just give a heads up, because I know you're thinking, because I talk a lot about sobriety in here, and I am sober from alcohol and certain actions. And Ed tells an amazing story about his overcoming opioid addiction through a program called Community Cenacolo, and it's very much worth listening. Ed and I are friends and co-workers, and we talk about losing people, friends and co-workers during this lockdown. And I recorded this with Ed in December, and the reason I'm giving this long intro is because I'm releasing it Friday, February 26th, and just a few days ago, a friend and co-worker of Ed and I just overdosed. He was a young man, a couple years younger than me, and he was a very good dude. And it reinforced what I already knew when I made this podcast, which was that this isn't something that's talked about. I mean, it is, but it's, I'm real sick and tired of getting phone calls and finding out that good people I know are dead. And I wish that our society, you can't escape COVID. It's on the news every day. It's literally in your face, and I'm curious as to why we can't treat our nation's drug problems, the epidemic that is the opioid crisis, meth, crack, alcoholism. Why can't we treat our nation's horrific addiction problems, which have led to the deaths and incarcerations of so many people, or the mental health crisis, which are tied into this, and suicide, or our nation's obesity and health crisis? Why can't we treat that the way we treated COVID? But the reality is, I know the answer to that. It's because COVID could theoretically hurt the rich and the wealthy, who can use their money and zip codes to insulate themselves away from these other problems. But I don't want to. This is the intro, Mike. I'm not going to get into that right now. What I basically wanted to do by saying this is, if you're going through some shit, you're not alone. Take a listen to this podcast. I know I kind of started this off on a morose note. It was kind of unavoidable considering, as I was editing this, I found out about my friend. And you're not alone, man. I know I'm around people who can openly discuss this, but a lot of people aren't, and they don't know what it's like to be in an environment. And the podcast in itself is much more. It's somber, but it's jovial, because people have come out the other side and seen that you can get out of addiction to whatever it is that you're addicted to, especially even heroin and opioids. And really tells some amazing stories about his time in community and what it did for him. And it works. And it's free, as you'll find out. So if you are suffering from something, you're not alone, man. And there is redemption. And the title of this podcast is Renaissance, which is Italian for rebirth. Ed will talk about his time in this Italian community. And maybe not you, but maybe you have a family member. I think most people, it's very rare that anyone has gone through life not being affected by addiction in some way. Perhaps it's not you, but it's someone that you know or love or care about. So give it a listen. It's I don't know. I'm babbling right now. There's it doesn't have to go that way, man. It doesn't. There's hope. There's hope. You're not alone. And you can come out, man. There's another side to all this, and life is good. And without further ado, guys, thank you very much for listening. I hope you appreciate this one. This was a good one. I really enjoyed talking to Ed, and we have a very honest discussion about, our own personal situations. And Ed, like I said, Ed really has an amazing story. So thank you very much, and thank you for listening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Get Your Act Together with Mike Bain. Thanks for listening. I have another guest on the show, a friend of mine, a man with an amazing story, Mr. Ed Maher. Ed, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. When I decided I wanted to get people on the show, you were honestly one of the first ones that popped into my mind. I had heard your story on another podcast. You had also told it to me because Ed and I are friends. We've worked together.
Right.
And so I'll start off with some of my own stuff.
Sure.
So when I've been sober it'll be 4 years in February, and I was an alcoholic. And, one of the things with addiction, because I want to talk a lot about addiction on this show, is that most people have addiction. They just don't realize it because they have small addictions. Some people are addicted to crack. Some are addicted to heroin and meth and alcohol. Some are addicted to gambling. All right. Some are addicted to watching TV or their phones or eating fast food or bad food. Some addictions don't ever fuck up your life. Some ruin it. And, what I've realized with addiction is that it's about getting rid of the bad addictions in favor of good addictions.
Right.
Like now I'm addicted to working out, or I'm addicted to helping people or hiking or something positive. It's one of those things when people shit on AA, they always go, "Oh man, they're just smoking and drinking coffee now." And I go, "I know that's a million times better than heroin." Okay.
Right.
So
right. Exactly.
And I was getting sober from alcohol, which was a huge thing for me because, men in my family have fallen to the bottle, time and time again. And I swore it would stop with me. And when I was in the process of trying to get sober, the biggest thing I had to deal with was shame. The shame ruined me, man. The shame and the fear of judgment and not being able to admit it. That's why everyone says the first step is admitting it,
right.
Admitting you're an addict. And it was such a hurdle for me. And I remember, being incredibly depressed because I was hitting my rock bottom. And talking with some of our coworkers who, could tell I was messed up, and they asked me what's going on. And I was like, I remember I was talking to Jimmy, and Jimmy, I was like, I'm trying to stop drinking. And then it was like, I think we were taking, we were working on the duck boats, cleaning them of sound gear and confetti after the Patriots parade. And he goes, "How's the not drinking thing going?" And I go, "Not well." Right. And he just goes, "It's okay, buddy." But I remember talking with people in hushed tones, and then I realized so many people in our industry, in the entertainment, stagehand, rigging, grip community, were sober. And people were coming forward with stories to me to help me out because they were like, you're surrounded. You're not the only one. And that's such an important thing, and is why it's so important to talk about this, is when people realize they're not the only one.
Right.
That's huge, man. When you realize you ain't the only one and that most people have this in their families, it's amazing. Well, it's just amazing to know that was my biggest hurdle, was getting over that.
Yep.
So what you told me helped me a ton because you had an incredible story, and I was thankfully I don't drink anymore. I don't want to drink anymore.
Right.
I switched it to other stuff for a little. For a little, it was porn and sex that I was addicted to. But
normal.
It's and I want to go into you. So where did your addiction start?
Wow, that's a good question. I started using opiates during my marriage. I wasn't happy with certain aspects of my life at the time, and I kind of began self-medicating. I hurt my back playing hockey, and I got some painkillers. And it was, I can't remember if it was Vicodin or Percocet, one of those two. And I remember the first time I took it, I was like, wow, where's this been my whole life? I mean, the effect, the euphoria was amazing.
I've taken them.
You know, and I know some people take them and they don't feel anything or it doesn't hit them. But for me, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so, I mean, in the addiction, you know, it was kind of gradual there. I mean, that was probably in my mid to late 20s. I can't remember exactly. But I think to a certain extent, I always had some of the underlying issues. So I could say when I started using, but then I could say when some of the maybe emotional problems that I had deep down inside developed maybe when I was younger. Probably started when I was 4 or 5, quite frankly. And the way I started to cope with what I felt, you know, I didn't understand what I was feeling and how to cope at such a young age. It's hard to, you know. And so I think I developed some bad emotional habits even when I was 4 years old. And I didn't realize these emotional habits I had until I was 35. But the addiction portion, when I began using and became addicted to opiates, was my late 20s. And by my early 30s, I was a mess. And I was in a marriage and it was falling apart. I had a successful business. I was a financial advisor. I was making a lot of money. And
this is when you were living in Chicago?
Correct. I was in Chicago at the time. I got married when I was in my late 20s to a girl I was with for a while, and a girl I loved. It did what it does. It grabbed me and it had me, and it was, you know, it was tough. It was very hard. It took a lot for me too. You know, I lost everything basically. I lost my marriage. My ex left me. You know, we got divorced. You know, and I had to sell my business, and then I took off, you know, as I told you.
Well, you lost your home, right? And you had...
Yeah, I had to sell I had a condo that I lived in Chicago, and I had a rental property in Ohio. And over the course of time, I had to sell the Chicago property, and then eventually, you know, the home in Ohio as well, you know.
Yeah, I think it's important that you mentioned that it doesn't start when you first pick up a pill or a bottle.
Right.
It's... Because that was the same situation with me, man. I was covering for stuff I never knew how to verbalize.
Right.
I was, you know, we're both Irish Americans, and we come from a similar environment where if you have emotions, you're a fairy. Okay, at best, you're a fairy. You're weak. You're whatever. And we don't come from a culture where they verbalize that.
Exactly. That's a big thing that I saw too.
It's also, I think there's a generational pain. And I think a lot of cultures can have this, but certainly with the Irish, where it was like, all right, we've been under the foot of the English forever, and then we come to America, and they treat you subhuman. You go die in a coal mine, and then you just beat it into your kid, generation after generation.
Exactly. It took time for me to understand that too. I remember, you know, when I first was trying to deal and cope with my addiction in Chicago, you know, and you know, maybe in a half-assed sort of way, but, you know, I was meeting with guys who knew what was up and who had worked a program, who had gone through a lot of work to understand themselves. And they started talking about this generational wounding factor. And I didn't get it at the time until I started to really get into it and understand. And, you know, when I was in Europe in this organization I was in, and you would see how Italians would react emotionally to situations. You'd see how Spanish, Croatian, Polish. So it was really interesting. And then to kind of reflect on my Irish upbringing and ancestry, and to realize that had a lot to do with what I was dealing with, was the generational stuff. Just like you said, I imagine these people starving in the potato famine, blaming the English, you know, coming over here, I mean, whether it was legitimate or not, in their heads and in their hearts, you know, just the anger, and then coming over here and being treated as second-class citizens, and you know, that being passed on, that anger, that frustration, and resentment was big, and shaming. Shaming is huge with the Irish.
Oh God, they shame you when you first start taking dumps.
Right, it's the truth. It's big in the Irish. You know, I don't know why it is, but that's the way it is. And so, you know, I came to see it, and it was like, wow, you know.
I think that's one of the reasons it's so hard. Why addiction runs, like, obviously there's genetic alcoholism, but there is a cultural alcoholism of, like, the big thing, like when I stopped coming around for the holidays or talking to my father, my mother got angry then. And I'm like, after all the years of his nonsense, you get angry when her biggest fear was the neighborhood knowing. And I'm like, the neighborhood knows. They watch him try and park his car shit-faced, and he misses 8 times. We all know what's going on. But people talking was my mother's biggest fear in the world.
Right. Fear
that shame of what everyone else says. And that inhibits so many people from getting sober. And what was it for you that allowed you to admit that you had a problem? What was your rock bottom, I guess?
The rock bottom, boy. Probably losing, the divorce, having to sell the business, losing everything basically, and then, then I was ready for the most part. But even then I kind of ran a little bit. I was searching and I was kind of looking for an easier way, but then I stumbled upon, that organization and the Italian community, which was, my lifesaver. Changed my life.
How'd you find out about them?
So after my divorce, I was really searching for answers. I didn't understand, why did this happen to me? I didn't want to be an addict. I didn't want to be addicted to opiates. I didn't want to lose my ex, really. I didn't want to, I didn't want to go through all this pain and then cause pain for my family and my ex and her family too. I didn't want to do that. But, it was, I read a book about this place in Bosnia called Medjugorje, this place where the Virgin Mary's been appearing for 30, 40 years now. And, I was kind of fascinated with it. And I was in a rehab setting too. I was in another rehab and
in the States?
In the States. I think it was in Iowa, if I remember correctly. And I'd already tried Hazelden in Minnesota a couple times.
Is that a famous one? I'm not familiar.
It is famous. I think, who's the Clapton went there, I think, back a long time ago. Anyway, so I didn't understand. I was so confused. I was so angry. I was bitter, and I found this book and it talked about this phenomenal occurrence in Medjugorje in the middle of nowhere. It was Yugoslavia at the time, communist Yugoslavia. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go there after I read this. And so I went there and it was an amazing experience. I flew to Bosnia. My father came with me. And it was the first time I felt peace in a long time. And I was really just there was so much to it. All these other pilgrims coming there, Italians, French, Spanish, whomever, thousands of people. Yeah. And I was on hand for this apparition with one of the visionaries, and it was kind of fascinating, and there was exorcism. I saw a lot of stuff and experienced a lot of stuff, but I felt a lot of peace. Yeah. That was it. And I was kind of like, okay, there's something going on here. But then when I was there, I found this Italian organization. So it's called Community Cenacolo. It was founded by an Italian nun named Mother Elvira, who's going to be a saint. She's incredible. But their largest fraternity, as they call them, there's about 70 guys, is in Medjugorje. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first time I came across it. And it had a really good reputation for being very hard, very difficult, very tough.
And you hadn't been able to kick the habit by this point.
I hadn't been able to kick it completely, no. I was taking Suboxone and it was, but I was drinking a lot. I was just still, I hadn't solved the issue,
Did you have your near-death experience by this point?
No, that was before, yeah. So that was before in Chicago still.
Yeah.
So that was probably a few months before this, actually, this trip to Bosnia. I had this incident where I was using and I basically overdosed while I was driving my car. Mm. Woke up in the back of an ambulance being shot with Narcan, which was a shocking experience.
I can imagine.
It was a crazy time. And I look at that now as, I don't know, I was spared for some reason, not because I'm a hero or a saint, but I don't know, God gave me a second chance.
And that wasn't the moment that woke you up either.
No, it really wasn't. I was still,
The reason I say that is because I was out drinking, and then I remember waking up in a hospital, and my eye socket is fractured, and I can't see out of my eye, and I'm just looking, and there's my parents. I'm like, I can only look out of my right eye, and there's my parents. There's an Indian doctor and 7 of his fucking interns, and they're all just looking at me, and I'm like, shit, and I'm like, how come one of my eyeballs isn't working? And I just remember being in a bar, and I remember being there. And I had somehow fallen down, fractured my eye socket. And this is one of the coldest nights of the years. And my father found me because the dogs were barking. I crawled into my front hallway, and my face was covered in blood, all just like Hamburg. And and I had almost frozen to death. When they found me, my body temperature was 94 degrees.
Wow.
And they had to put me in blankets and put me in an ambulance. And they had to check to make sure I didn't have permanent brain damage. I found out I have an aneurysm. It's there anyway. It was just, now I know,
Right.
Nothing I can do about it.
Jeez.
There's an aneurysm in my brain that I just wait and, if it takes me, it takes me. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But that didn't stop me.
Right.
I kept drinking for like 5 more years.
Right.
And when I tell people that, they go, "Oh, that was it." And I go, "No, it wasn't. No, not at all."
It's true.
It's honestly, sometimes what gets you is something small.
Right.
It's not the I'm going to die thing.
Yep.
It's, for me, it was like, I think the first time was like, I fell down, got another concussion. I've had so many. And I had a comedy festival, and I was like, I can't be doing this. I care about comedy. I don't care about living. And then I think it was, I went on a bachelor party to Vegas, and alcohol didn't work. Did you ever have a point where you were using and it just, it didn't do it?
It did. And that's part of, the OD too, is that you build a tolerance with opiates. You build this tolerance, and eventually what you used before doesn't affect you anymore. You can't get high, you can't get that same feeling, and if you do, it's quick and fleeting, and so you're always taking more and more. But what happens with opiate addicts is they'll maybe get sober for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden that tolerance drops way down, and then they go back to use again, and it just does them in right then and there. And that was kind of what happened with me in this instance, is that I had been fighting. I was kind of sober for like a month or two or something like that. Then I went back to try to use again, and it was too much. And it was, gosh, I was at a stoplight, and then it turned green, and that was the last thing I remember. And I kind of just floated across the street. I hit a telephone pole, and I rolled it into an empty lot. And that's when, somebody saw that and called 911.
Yeah.
Now, if I would have just been chilling in my car somewhere, I might have died. If I would have just been in park, just sitting in a parking lot or something like that, I probably would have passed. I think I might have died.
Yeah.
So the fact that all these little things happen just also kind of lead me to believe, maybe I was just spared for some reason.
I'm a strong believer in fate, and that
Right.
Things.
It wasn't my time.
Things work out the way they're meant to work out. And that's, and so you had this experience, you had gone through these programs, and they just weren't doing it. Because with opioids, so many people go through programs, and with opioids especially, they don't work.
Right.
And there are a few that do, because most programs don't address the issue, which is the pain.
Correct.
They just try and get rid of the substance. And the reality is, it's like when someone's trying to lose weight and they go, "I'm going to go on a diet." It's not a diet. It's a lifestyle change.
Right.
Same thing with addiction. You are changing your life.
Right.
You're not getting rid of alcohol. You're not getting rid of heroin. It's not just that. It's figuring out how you interpret pain and what you're running from.
Right. It just makes you so sick too. As the sickness, the addiction progresses, I just become more and more sick. I watched Hillbilly Elegy last night, and I was so struck by Amy Adams' performance, because it reminded me a lot of, where I was, and how sick people become. They just manipulate, destroy, and I did a lot of lying, manipulating, pointing the finger everywhere else. And, in AA and NA, the 12-step programs, I couldn't get it. It wasn't because they didn't work, but because the sickness is so overwhelming. And I was in a place that I was so sick that I couldn't understand anything. I was just and a lot of that sickness is pride, ego,
you gotta
justifying
kill your ego.
the ugly parts of the human condition, resentment, which is big, and they talk a lot about in AA and 12-step programs, rightly so. But it's just, that's the part of the sickness, the emotional, spiritual, the constitution, the inner constitution. Like they say in AA, those who don't get this program are those who are constitutionally incapable of being honest. And I was at that point.
The spiritual sickness is a big one, because that's really where it comes from. It's more than it's a physical addiction. It's a sickness of the soul.
Right.
It's a void within you that you're trying to fill. And you're trying to avoid. And what I realized with any addiction, I just had this when I was a couple weeks ago. I went to Florida, and I didn't have my phone. And like, I was like, oh shit, I'm having a panic attack because all this stuff I've been avoiding is hitting me. And I go, this is what I used to, the day after I would drink, all of it would come back in the morning. Right. And some days I'd have perks to take or I'd just smoke. But if I didn't, I had to sit there with it. And the longer you go without addressing your stress or your anxiety or what's fucking you up, when it hits you, oh, it's like a freight train, man.
It's true. It builds. And I saw this a lot when I was going through and really kind of, when I got to a point where I got honest and I started to look at, everything that was affecting me exteriorly that I would react to emotionally, I would see that if I'm not addressing it, it just builds up like, a volcano that's going to erupt inside, or it builds. It really does. Every emotional reaction is just kind of like filling a cup, and it's got to be addressed somehow, because, and same thing, I used to medicate that,
Well, and so after going through these programs and they're not working, and you can acknowledge because you're trying to get better,
right?
And that's one of the most important things is getting better, and sometimes you can't. I was there for a little bit, but thankfully it took over. Like I was thankfully a lot faster than a lot of people because I really wanted it, and.
Right, and that's the point there too. When you really want it, that's when it starts to come, I think.
The last time I drank, I remember waking up out of a blackout and my ex is screaming at me, "It's 3 PM! Ah! I had raided her parents' liquor cabinet. They had found like a bottle of wine. It was a gift, and I jammed a steak knife in the cook to try to open it. Wow. And I cried. I just bawled my eyes out, and she was like so taken aback. She stopped yelling at me and hugged me. And I was like, I'm so thankful that she did that because I didn't even have any. I was like, oh, dude, I'm a fucking piece of garbage. And that feeling, the self-hate, the more you use, the more you hate yourself and the more you want to use.
Correct. Because that's how you deal with it. The self-loathing. I dealt with that too. Yeah. I think, going through just losing my ex and what the pain I caused her and the family and the shame that they went, it became a self-loathing that I had to see in my first year of really working on it. And it was interesting. We did this little acting scene one day. We challenged each other in a lot of ways in this Italian community. And I didn't really like acting, but I did. And then I watched a tape of myself, and I remember I felt that kind of self-loathing at that time. And I was like, wow, that's not good.
No, and one of the things, unfortunately, when you hate or resent yourself and you're with someone who loves you, you start to resent them because you go, you love me and I'm a piece of fucking shit. Right. You must suck. And I've done that. I've been on the other end of that many a times. And one of the things I really wanted to explore why people use and why we used was to explore exactly why this community worked for you. So I'll pick up again so you ended up in Europe, in Bosnia, former Yugoslavia.
Right.
Now, what was it? What did you first end up doing when you got there before you ended up in the community?
Yeah, so I did a lot before that. So I wanted to figure things out on my own, right? I wanted it to be easy. I saw this Italian community. People were saying, "Hey, you should go there."
I'm sorry to interrupt, but is this when you walked? Did you walk across Europe to Yugoslavia? Or was this a later take?
So that was in the middle of it. So I went to and I did this pilgrimage. I went to Medjugorje in Bosnia. Then I came back for a little bit. And then I decided, okay, I'm going back, and I'm going to do this Italian community, I think. But I got over there, and then I got, fear kicked in. I'm like, oh my God, I might have to go here for a few years. They asked for a 3-year commitment, and I'd met a couple guys that stayed there for 4 and 5 years. I thought, these guys are nuts. There's no way I'm doing this.
This is like college, man.
Right. This looks like jail to me. I don't want to do this. But anyway, so I went there and I stayed in Bosnia. I stayed in this place for a few months. I had some money from. I had some money. So I stayed in like a cheap, not even apartment. It used to be like a hotel or something like that. And I just went to the mass every day. I met some of the tour guides and I felt peace. Like I felt good there. I felt safe and, but I wasn't necessarily working on myself at the point. But then in the middle of this, I flew to Spain. I walked part of the Camino de Santiago in Spain, which was great. It was
what is that?
So this was the Apostle St. James was buried in northwest Spain in Santiago in like the year 1000. And when that happened, people from all over Europe started to make a pilgrimage. People as far away as Poland would walk all the way to northwest Spain. Some criminals would be given a sentence, go walk from Poland all the way to Santiago, come back with a Compostela certificate that you get when you walk the Camino and a shell, and we'll forgive you. Yeah. So guys would be gone for like 4 years, or they'll never come back ever. You never know.
Or they fly and cheat. They just
right. Or yeah, forge it. But it was cool. Like I went and did this. Like it was cathartic at the time. It gave me just to walk like that every day, and it was a beautiful. I mean, Spain is beautiful, and I would meet people from all over the world, and everybody's kind of walking for a reason. They're trying to find themselves. They're struggling with something, or vacation, who knows, wanderlust. But it was really cool. It was something I kind of needed. It was cathartic. And, I met great people. Like I said, I finished it. And then I went back to Medjugorje again. I flew from, Croatia to Spain, back to Croatia, went to Medjugorje. And then I was in a small community, a different, not this Italian community, but another community inside Medjugorje for a month or two. So I got to experience what community life was like. And then,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but for the people listening, when he says community, the name of this program is Community.
The name of the specific one I eventually did was that for 4 years was Community Cenacolo. Yeah. Cenacolo is an Italian word that for the upper room where the apostles had the Last Supper, cenacle, basically. Mm-hmm. And that's what the name that Mother Elvira chose for the community, the organization that she founded. She founded it back in 1981. She was kind of drawn to the addiction that she saw in the streets of northern Italy. And she wanted to go work with the addicts. And her Mother Superior thought she was nuts. And Mother Elvira was just a strong and kind of, she was out there a little bit at the time. But now we look at what she did, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, she set up a monastery in Bosnia to bring in addicts from all over the world for free.
Right, for free, exactly. I didn't pay a penny. So people became so, she made this commitment. The Italian government offered to give her money and to be involved and help her, and she refused. She said, I want it to be, something of God. I will depend on the providence of people donating us food. Somebody's going to pay the electric bill, the water bill, and they'll bring us tools for all the building we're going to do. And it's worked. It's nuts. It's kind of crazy, but it worked. And I've seen it work where, we never went grocery shopping. I lived in a house with 45 guys in France for 2 years, and we never had to go buy groceries because, Italian pilgrims would come and bring us coffee and sugar and all this. And we did live off the land. We had a huge garden. We had cows, we had pigs that we slaughtered, we had chickens that gave us eggs. And so, which was interesting too, to have that, Mother Elvira called it the taste of life. I milked cows for 6 months, which was crazy, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, milking cows, bringing the milk in, cleaning the cow shit all day. It was very humbling,
That's something I wanted. So was this before or after you ended up in the field with the exorcisms?
So that was after. So the exorcism I saw two. The second of which was really disturbing. I kind of had a morbid curiosity about that whole, The second one I saw was very disturbing. It was in the evening. There was an outdoor mass in Medjugorje, and all the priests that were there on the pilgrimage would go up and they would celebrate. They'd celebrate the mass together with the priests from Medjugorje, the Franciscan priests. So there'd be 100 priests up there on the stage, or on the altar, excuse me. It looks like a stage, but sometimes it is a stage, but for the mass, it's an altar. And there'd be 5,000 to 7,000 people in the field, in these benches. And there was a huge boulder. If you go out the center aisle, there's a huge boulder in this grassy area. And during the mass, I think it was at the point where the Eucharist was consecrated, I started hearing these weird noises, moaning or crying. And, I didn't want to gawk or stare, but it was very close. It was just to my right because I was back in the grassy area myself. And eventually, when the priests came out to distribute the Eucharist, to give communion, the priests come out to the crowd because there's 7,000, you're not going to have 7,000 people in line, and the priests would just go out, hundreds of them. So at this point, there was a huge commotion, and I saw this family come out, and they were holding down, it was like a little girl, like a 10-year-old girl, and it was similar to what I'd seen before, just thrashing, screaming. It was rough. People who were getting the communion, receiving the communion, and then they would come and form this circle around this family and gawk, and the father was screaming at them to get away. You know, it was a scene. I was crying. It was terrible. And then eventually, but the problem too was that all the priests were celebrating mass. They all had stuff they were doing, and so they weren't noticing what was happening. And then finally, a priest came over, started giving her the rites of exorcism, and she was out cold. You know, it was a crazy, smack in the face kind of experience.
And did she come to after? What was her situation after?
She was kind of sleeping, and I kind of left. I didn't want to gawk like the other people, you know. So I just kind of, you know.
Well, I imagine there was like a dark energy going on when that happened.
I think so. I mean, it's interesting that I think they must have brought her there because they didn't know what I'm guessing, but you know, either something else happened there or they brought her there for that purpose. Because people do that. People will go to different sanctuaries, Catholic, like in Loreto, Italy. They had a room set aside next to this holy house for people who were struggling with demonic possession or something similar to that, and they would take care of it. Lourdes, I think, also, I believe.
Now, this Medjugorje, was this place or this town or this area considered a place where miracles or a spiritual like waypoint?
Yeah. So there had been a lot of different miracles over the time. I mean, there were 6 children who first saw this apparition of the Virgin Mary, and you know, they went back and told their family, and their family berated them. You know, so it's blasphemous. Don't talk like this. And nobody believed them, and they were doubted. And of course, the communists weren't going to have that at all.
That's right. It was communist at the time.
Yeah, it's such a rich, complicated history. So really, the Serbs were the dominant communist party, and they were Orthodox Christian, although even their faith was kind of suppressed. And the Croatians, which Medjugorje is in a part of Bosnia, but it's Herzegovina, which they are native Croatians. So the Croatians are Catholic, and so there was always a lot of tension that's been going on for hundreds of years. It's something it's too much for me. I don't understand it all. But they were always concerned about a Croatian nationalistic uprising, the communists, and they thought that this was a front for that. Mm-hmm. So the communists were not going to allow anything like this, the Virgin Mary appearing. So they tried to crush it. They arrested priests the priest again didn't believe the kids at first. And so, but yeah, there were some miracles that happened. There was a lot of other interesting phenomena going on. And, those 6 children are now adults. 3 of them still see the Virgin Mary every day at 6:40. It's amazing. The other 3 do not, because there's a series of secrets that are being given. And when they have received all of these secrets, so these 3 have received all the secrets the Virgin Mary is going to give them. So they don't see her on a daily basis, but on an annual basis. The other 3 still see her at 6:40 every day. Now, when they all have all of these secrets, there's supposed to be certain events that are supposed to start to occur. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea what those are going to be for the most part. But
I mean, it sounds like this is a powerful place. It might explain why you're at peace when you get here.
Yeah.
I believe that there are certain places that can be energy focal points or spiritual waypoints
right
on the physical plane that we live in. Now, I'm glad we set the pace for the space for this. Please tell us what community was about, what your journey through that program was like, and just so anyone listening, whether they know what it's about.
Yeah, so Community Cenacolo. We do have in the United States a location in Birmingham, Alabama, and 2 locations in Florida. Actually, now 1 location where it's 2 locations still for men, and 1 location in Florida for women. And again, it's free. So I came back to the United States eventually, and I started in Florida before I went back to Europe in the organization, in Community Cenacolo. And basically, the way Mother Elvira founded it kind of evolved over time to be, she believed in the kind of the Holy Spirit was, she credited the community with kind of being the imagination of the Holy Spirit, she said. And so things evolved from what the guys told her was working and what they were seeing. So there was a lot of fraternal correction. This is a big part of it. So we got correction all the time, and we were supposed to give correction all the time.
What is correction?
So, and we would call it help. So if you see somebody doing something that's wrong, you'd stop them and tell them what you think, either in that moment, correcting them with the work they're doing or the way they're behaving or something like that. Or you can just pull them aside and tell them a deeper truth you think about them. Mm-hmm. And so there's Don Stefano, he's now a priest who started as a young man in the organization, but then became a priest and consecrated himself to it. And he's kind of the leader now because Mother Elvira is not well. And he would say a full day in the organization, in the community, would be to confront 3 brothers and to receive 3 confrontations. Because it's about the truth. It's about getting into the dirty, ugly truth. And
it's hard to hear the truth.
It is. And a big part of this, too, that they tell us early on is no justifying yourself. If a guy comes and tells you something, stay in silence. It doesn't matter if he doesn't know what he doesn't know anything he's talking about. But if you respond, if you're going to respond, that's just your pride. That's your inability to be humble in the moment and, accept it and accept that little sufferance.
So it sounds like accepting suffering and leveling your ego and your hubris is a fundamental part of this recovery program.
It's huge, and it's very hard and everybody gets it. Everybody gets the humility. It doesn't matter if you'd been there for 20 years or you'd just been there a month. It's a constant reflection, and we would break down. So during the day we would have all of this, but also every 2 weeks we would get into small groups of 4 guys. Typically the 4 guys you're interacting with the most, 4 guys you're working with. And so every 2 weeks we'd get together in these small groups and we would talk, so for example, if we were in a group together, I would speak for a couple minutes about what I experienced the last 2 weeks, how I thought this period had gone. Like, I saw improvements here, this is what I think about the work. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I really am living in my heart right now. And these are the things I've done. And then I stay in silence. And the other 3 guys tell me what they think about me and how I've done the last few weeks. And at the end of that hour or whatever, they give me a specific commitment that I got to maintain for the next 2 weeks. So for example, if I'm being too superficial, one of the things we would do is we'd say, you're going to have to get up after dinner and state 2 moments in your day when you controlled your superficiality, when you were going to make a joke or and you didn't do that, or 2 moments that you gave correction to another brother. If it's somebody who doesn't like to confront people, well, we're going to push you to be a little more uncomfortable and kind of grow through this and go tell somebody what you think of them. And so it really, it's a place where we don't escape. We're not going anywhere. There's no cell phone. There's no internet. There's no television. You're
completely separated from the outside world. Correct. For 4 years.
Correct.
And how do you have access to your family?
Written letters.
Those are like the Civil War, huh?
Exactly.
You're right. I think that's a fundamental point, because when I take time away from screen time, I'm happy.
I know.
It's so bad, and it's a fundamental part of any recovery, or just even if you're not an addict. If you just take a week away from a phone or a screen, you feel a million times better.
Right.
And that's what was something I noticed was so important, is because it's not. So you guys are in a monastery, essentially.
Well, they don't necessarily have to be monastery because we're non-religious. We're not. Yeah. So we would just call them a fraternity house.
I'm just picturing like a stone building in my head.
Right. So like in Lourdes in France, we bought this old like farmhouse, and it was, it had like stable. It's beautiful. And then we fixed it up. So a big part of what we do is, learning to do construction, learning to do new work. And as we're building these houses, and doing this kind of work, we're building ourselves back up. Because you can grow a lot. I grew a lot in the work. I worked in a kitchen for 6 months. So
it's so powerful, man. Right. I get like the older guys I grew up with. Because like the other day, I was just trying to fix my windshield wiper, and I'm just tinkering on my car, and I feel so good when I fix it.
Right.
And I'm like, because in your head, you're trying to tackle these monumental problems that you put there for your life, right? And when you tackle something small, it feels so much better. Right. That's why you make lists and you tackle one by one by one by one. And there is something about work that humbles you, but also gives you a sense of purpose.
It does. The union was great for that. The local 11 was ideal. Because we're just, we're problem solving all day, little problems, whatever, building something all day. It was the most satisfying feeling to like build a whole stage for Justin Timberlake, the whole thing, the whole set, the videos, the audio, all that stuff, and then tear it all down 4 hours later and put it on the truck. I mean, it was the best feeling. So work can do a lot, you know,
especially when you're working with others. When you're working as part of a whole,
right?
And it's just not about your own arrogance,
right?
And so, how many guys are in the community with you?
So I think there's about 70 different fraternities all over the world now. So they started in Italy. There's, I don't know, 10 houses there, something like that. Austria, France has 3, Spain has 2, England has 1, Ireland has 1, Medjugorje, Bosnia, Poland has a couple, the United States has 3, Costa Rica now, Liberia and Africa. Then we have mission houses also where guys and girls like me, if we go to the community for 4 years, if we want, we can give another couple years of our life to go serve in these mission houses. And most of our mission houses are, again, Liberia, Africa, Mexico. There's 5 or 6 in Brazil, Argentina, and Peru, a couple in Peru, where basically we go and we take in children who've been abandoned by drug addicts, alcoholics, prostitutes, whatever, and we raise them, which is a huge task. So I actually went down to Mexico to visit one of my buddies, this guy named Teddy, who's from Martinique, and he was with me in France. And he was down with a group of boys in Mexico. Him and another Italian guy were the basically your surrogate fathers. And you got to teach them how to live life. And they were with a group of probably about 12 boys, ages, I don't know, 8 to 12, something like that. And, you know, they got to clean up after them, you know, get on them when they're not behaving, make them do their homework, that kind of stuff.
Work.
Yeah, it is work. It's hard
because,
you know, a lot of those kids don't want to hear it. They've, you know, and they're wounded, they're hurt, they've been abandoned, you know, and they're not going to listen to you. You know, who are you? You're not, my father left me. You're not my father. You know, it's tough. It's hard, but it's beautiful too. It's really cool. So I'm glad I got to experience that. I thought about doing it myself, but I was kind of getting older, and my sister had a couple kids, and I kind of at that point realized I wanted to come back and, you know, be able to be around them more, you know.
Powerful. I mean, I swore I would never have kids until I spent time with my cousin's 2 kids, and I was like, oh, I could have some now.
Right.
It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I go, watching him learn how to use a hammer and just smash nails. I was like, dude, this is what I've been looking for all this time. All this time I've been doing drugs and banging whores. Right. I just wanted like love and to help someone. Exactly. I wanted to help people. Yeah. I wanted this sort of real life human connection. It's better than a phone. It's better than anything I've ever seen, is having real connection. And it sounds like that's what community did for you, is because it sounds like what they did is you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they broke you guys down and had to rebuild you because you had to start over from scratch, because society is more or less in our modern era, it doesn't prepare us for how to feel pain, for how to feel trauma, for what to do when we don't get our way because we're spoiled and we think everything should go our way. We see that in our society where we cancel people because they say stuff we don't like.
Right.
People get to say stuff you don't like, and you got to take it.
Exactly. That's interesting. So yeah, we had the aspect where you had to give correction, but the other aspect was you have to share your reactions. So now if a guy comes and confronts me, maybe in front of 20 other guys, says, look at you, you're I'm in the kitchen, like you don't know how to cook, you don't know how to cut an onion, you Americans don't know, I mean, you guys eat McDonald's, you don't know anything. And then the Italians were like this a lot. But they break my balls in front of 20 people and I got to stay in silence, and they might go on and on and on and on to test me too. See, what's going to come out? Well, a lot of guys would do that too. To push you, look at what you got inside. So then I had to start sharing reactions, and I didn't know. I think he's got time to share a reaction. What do you mean? So if I hear one of my first stories, talking about this guy named Jerry, who we were working together, we were chopping wood or something like that, and he pointed out a quick moment where I was kind of cutting a corner and being like, look at this. This is you. You're cutting a corner. This is your laziness right here. And I was like, this was the first time it happened. Like, who's this guy think he is? This was my reaction, and I was angry, and I was, and so. I understood, okay, I got to share this reaction, I guess. What does this mean? So then I went to him later. Now they suggest in the community, wait a day, sleep on it, suffer with it. You don't like that feeling? Too bad. Learn to be a man, suffer with it. Yeah. And so for me, I couldn't wait that long. And I went to share my reaction. But what I was pointing the finger, like, it's your fault that I'm angry because and I was told, and he kind of stopped me. He's like, look, it's not my fault that you feel the way you feel. You know, the universe is going to provoke you, but you know, that's your pride and your ego, which is not my problem. That's your problem. And so I began to realize this, right? I've been having all these reactions. So then I really began to look inward. And so sharing these reactions, having these confrontations that triggers the pride, the ego, the judgment. Sometimes, like if I had an intense reaction, you know, I start to judge the other person, their motives. Paranoia can kick in if it's really intense. And, you know, and I got to a point where I was really good at kind of suffering with a tough confrontation or a humiliation, you know, and suffer with it for a day or two, then go to this guy and tell them and apologize to them for my negative feelings. You know, that's the tough part. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I felt a lot of pride and anger and resentment towards you. Forgive me. But the cool thing is typically 10 times out of 10, the guys receive it well, and it's a bonding moment. And I bonded a lot with a lot of these guys that I had some more intense confrontations with too, which was interesting.
Yeah, especially as men, because we think it's all just a pecking order, which to a degree it is, but it's what you realize with men is that we're always ready to bash each other's heads in, but we can be brothers just as fast as we can be enemies.
Right. And that definitely was there. There was, you know, I got to see ambition. You know, it was just, there'd be certain roles in the house and in the fraternity. And sometimes like I wanted to have this or that, and I would see how ambition could poison me to a certain extent to cause friction with another guy. And, you know, in jealousy, you know, a lot of guys would have to see their jealousies, petty jealousies. You know, it was really, you know, we think, you know, we're worse than women in some ways.
Yeah, we are. We can be just as bad.
Really?
We can just as bad, and we don't want to admit it, but men can be just as bad.
Exactly.
All
So,
right.
yeah, I mean, those simple basic mechanisms forced me, you know, the way the community, the structure, this basic structure of the community forced me to start to get honest and to see and look deeper. But then I had great examples. Some of these guys would share the most profound things that they were living and experiencing. And I had great examples of people that lived truth and got dirty and ugly with what they really have in their heart. And it was inspiring. You know, another thing we had to do was to read a diary every day. Somebody had the diary commitment where they'd have to go into the chapel at the end of every night at like 9 p.m. and write about their day. But we don't want to hear about how you woke up and you brushed your teeth and then you went to work. We saw all that. We know you did that. We know you had breakfast. We know you had lunch. It's all about the reactions you're having. And so then you got to get up and read that in front of the guys.
Oh, this is every teenage girl's worst nightmare.
Exactly. Well, the girls wrote their diary too. I can't imagine what those are like, but the guys were, you know, I mean,
You had to read your diary
in front of guests sometimes too.
Oh!
And you'd have to explain it. And then I had to do it in Italian too. So when I was in France, I'd have to get up there and I'm exhausted. I had a tough day. I argued with 5 guys. I milked cows. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, you chop wood. You're killing pigs.
I got to write a diary in Italian. And then I got to read it in Italian, which is, you know, so then I had to deal with a lot of fears that, you know, I didn't like public speaking. I didn't like reading in public, more or less reading all the deep, dark thoughts and feelings in my heart throughout the day. But that was another way. But I would see from certain guys how honest they were. And it was, again, it was inspiring. It's something I looked up to, and it helped me tremendously to see good examples of guys who were changing their lives. And there were a lot, you know, and there were some guys that still didn't in this organization because the sickness was so intense, just like AA 12 steps.
It's so important to see someone be honest. And that's like in AA, because I never went through the program. The meetings helped me at first, but it wasn't for me. I appreciate what they do. I respect very much what they do, but it wasn't for me. I didn't get entirely sober. I still smoke weed sometimes. But I never had an issue with that. Yeah. And I don't really only do it a couple times a month at this point. But that was an issue with them, as they wanted 100% sobriety. But I also wasn't getting what I wanted out of the program. But the important thing is, if people haven't been to meetings, someone gets up there and opens up first. And how important it is to watch someone else open up.
Right.
And in every aspect of life. And in what I do as a comedian, the best comics, the dudes who get up there and they open up. Once you're fearless, there's nothing. That's when you confront the shit you're running from with your addiction. Right. You confront the real thing. And you go, shit, man. dude, it's my issues with my parents. And then it's sitting right in front of your face and you go, oh, I got PTSD. I got trauma. Oh, man, I got beat too much, or it's this thing or that thing, or it's a compilation of things. And when you see them, you got to deal with them.
Right. Because then, then the work comes too. So for me too, I got to this crazy point after like a year and a half. I began to, things were like light bulbs were going off. One of the biggest ones for me is how much anger and resentment I had with myself. Like I had been carrying it since I was 4. So we kind of come back to this. So as a 4-year-old, I learned to hold on to anger. That was my defense mechanism. With my father, who wasn't a bad man at all, just Irish, he would unload his anger on me.
Yeah, they just come home and they think it's normal to just, everyone asks me, why are people from Boston the way they are? It's generational abuse. That's what Irish. It is.
I came back after seeing this and I came to Boston. I was like, oh, wow. I mean, I get this. I could see it right away.
It's not like the Italians where they hug their kids,
Right.
Our hug comes with a backhand of or a fist.
Right. We get those kind of distant hugs where we tap real quick and just,
Dude, I think I was like, even to this day, I still sometimes have trouble hugging my brother, and I love him. I love him with all my heart. I remember being like 28 and I was like, tell your brother you love him. If you don't hold on to this relationship, it's going to fall through your fingers. Relationships are work. And I was like, you're not weak. You're not a woman. You're not gay. All these things that have been pushed into my head as a kid. Right. And I was like, you can tell someone you love them and it doesn't make you a bitch.
Right. I know. I mean, it can be hard still for me too at times, to show emotion or to share it or to give, to give love can be difficult and uncomfortable for me,
Which I think is the cure for addiction.
Right.
Is and as corny as it fucking sounds, giving. Is love. It is love and giving. And it's human connection.
Right.
When I was running, it was loneliness.
Right. Yeah. Loneliness is big too. Even when you're with people, if you can't share what you're really feeling, if you haven't learned how to talk about what you feel and engage with someone in a deeper level, and because some of the feelings might be too uncomfortable, you don't want to go there, know? But yeah, I mean, for me, like I began to see more and more of what I really had in my heart, a lot of anger. And I came to this point though, this amazing point, right? Where I had so much anger with myself, with my father, with my ex-wife, with the whole universe. I was just bitter. I was angry. And I was like, wow, this is terrible. And it was through this situation, again, the community kind of gave me this providence through not an altercation, but a fight, like a disagreement and a dislike for another guy. I was living with this guy. I couldn't stand him. This Italian guy, he's a bastard, really. He's a really difficult, mean dude, and he was, I can imagine what happened to him when he was young. He was just, but, I realized with this guy, like, hey, you know what? I just got to forgive him. That's all I got to do. Yeah. But then I realized, oh my God, I don't know how to forgive. And this was the huge light bulb for me because I didn't know how to forgive. And then I saw all this anger that I had, that I'd been carrying, and I wanted it gone, right? But it wasn't, just because intellectually I recognized it and now I desired it doesn't mean it would go away. So it was the most confusing and perplexing thing, and it took me years to really be finished with a lot of the anger, and I had to work at it all the time. And I remember being so confused, and this was an interesting moment too. Like I wanted to forget. I was going to priests. I'd be like, hey, what do I got to do to forgive? Is there a book I can read or something? Like, is there a formula, X plus Y equals Z? And there is nothing. It's an emotional, spiritual issue. Yeah. And I was just fighting through it day after day. And there were days where I felt like, wow, I was clean. I felt good. There's the anger's gone. The resentments are gone. I'm clean. I'm free. I wanted that freedom. But then I would have a situation with another guy. Pride and anger would come back, and it was like a door that opened that brought back all the old resentments. All of them would come back. And I was like, what do I got to do to get rid? I was so confused. And then I remember, I started to pray, really pray. I was like, God, you got to help me. I'm a little peon creature, and I'm not capable of this. You've got to help me, please, because I don't want to live like a bitter person. I want to live with all this anger and resentment. And it kept coming and going. So one morning I went in the chapel and I read the gospel for that day. I went in the chapel a little bit earlier. I would start to pray a little bit earlier in the day, 6 a.m. and maybe even for 10 minutes. And the gospel was, Peter goes to Jesus and says, so if a brother wrongs me 7 times, I'm supposed to forgive this guy 7 times. And Jesus said, no, not 7, but 7 times, 77 times. And that hit me that spoke to me in a way that nothing else could explain what I was going through. Like, you got to forgive again. It's a habit I have to have. It's like a condition, a state of being that I have to work towards. And then I have to maintain it it's like not even 7 times 77 for that one incident, but 7 times 77 every day. I've got to have I had no mercy. I had no mercy towards myself, towards others.
The most important part of forgiveness is forgiving yourself.
Yeah, and that was huge. It took time.
I struggle with it. I forgave everyone in my life, but I couldn't forgive me.
Right. It's hard.
The last thing I could do.
It's amazing how hard that is, and how it became the most profound thing for me, forgiveness. And I'm 36 years old, and I'm realizing I don't know how to forgive. And wow, it blew my mind. And for that, like just for that journey I went through with the community, the spiritual, it was really, they call it a walk. You're doing a spiritual walk when you come here in this organization. That was the most incredible. Light bulb. You couldn't pay me $1 billion to avoid that, having to do this suffer. And it was hard when I went there. I suffered, and I learned how to suffer.
I think that's I think that is something that is lost to us, because in our modern era, we think that suffering isn't supposed to happen. Suffering is a fundamental component of being a living organism.
Exactly. It's human nature. It's human life. Of course you're going to suffer. Desire, we think in America in particular, you get what you want, how you want it, however you want it,
Whenever I'm sitting in Manhattan right now and I want to order a topless woman with a pizza with a bag of crack, and you think, I'm getting it, and you can call, you can get all those things. You can get those in America. You're like, I live in New England, but I want a cactus. I live in LA, and I'm going to order snow.
Right.
Like you have enough money, you can do it.
Right. There, we would learn that you don't get what you want at all. You want this? Oh, then you will never. So you learn that you never say what you wanted in this organization, ever. Express a desire, really, because then they'll make you suffer for it. Like some guys would see girls they were attracted to, although we didn't. They kept us apart because they know what happens when
drama.
You know exactly what's going to happen.
It'll be the real world in Bosnia.
Oh my God, yeah. And so it's better for us to work on ourselves separate, because when we get together, it's just terrible. So guys would express an interest for a girl, and the priest would say, well, "You have to go to the priest and talk to them." Okay, well, thank you. We'll think about that. So I had one friend who expressed this, and they told him, "We'll see you next year, and we'll talk about it then." So we suffered with it for a year.
Oh wow!
Then he came to them the next year, and he's like, "So what do you think?" And they're like, "Why don't you give it another year?" So they make and he suffered with it, and he did well. It's worthwhile. I learned a lot through the suffering. It was important for me to go through that. What they do is amazing, because it made me stronger. It
does.
It really made me a lot stronger. I needed it. I needed to be confronted with all, they would say, before you finish your walk, look at all the dark parts of your heart, suffer through it all. Make sure you do a full walk. They would encourage us.
So a walk is metaphorical.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your spiritual journey. Come to that point in your walk that you really feel satisfied. You did all the things you needed to do. You did some, you did some leadership. Maybe you got to a certain point, like for me with forgiveness, at least I recognize that. And I didn't quite come to the full, like I was completely clean with myself. With God and my father, I felt great. And my ex-wife was probably the longest. I don't know why that was, but it was. But then in my time here in Boston, I realized, I'm grateful that happened. Because again, I wouldn't trade what I went through here, those 4 years, for anything in the world. And in part, she helped me to get there, to grow and do all these things and travel the world. I learned Italian. I learned some French. I can cook now. I gained a lot of concrete, benefits, but it was, my understanding of myself and life and my poverties, my wounds. And that was a gift that's beyond value that I could measure.
Well, it sounds like they had you physically work to humble you, not just because you were doing all kinds of labor, right? You're growing your own food.
Right.
Which I think is amazing because we...
see the fruit of your labor.
I watched a video recently on Instagram of a 10-year-old girl with her father, and she shot a deer, and she was crying. And he makes her come over, and eventually she stops crying. She has an emotional thing, and she picks up the deer by his antlers, and he goes, "Look at what you did," and she's happy now. But at first, a lot of people I saw were like, "This is horrible," and even I was like, "Oh," but I was like, "This is so fundamental," because we think that we just get stuff. Like my hamburger just grows on a tree, that something didn't need to die, that everything in this universe goes through a process for you. Like that you don't, it's just not, and a lot of people think that they take for granted everything they have in life.
Right. It was amazing how much better the meals tasted when
when it's real food too.
We're growing our own tomatoes in our own garden, our own zucchini, eggplant, salad, everything, and we're eating it every day. It just has a different taste. I mean, there's a different appreciation, satisfaction with what we're doing, and then when I'm cooking it too, although when I was cooking, I didn't have any time. It was crazy, waking up 9 a.m. till 9 p.m, running around, cleaning, cooking, organizing pots, pans, cleaning, cooking, organizing, no time to think. 45 guys, and they're all going to see exactly, I'm going to get a lot of correction when I'm in the kitchen because they'll see if it's a good plate or a bad plate, so it was stressful, but it was satisfying too.
Well, they taught you how to deal with the stress.
Exactly.
Which is, when you can't handle the stress, that's when you go to dark places. Right.
So I had to confront, the more I suffered through my mistakes, humiliations, corrections, the more I grew, the better and stronger I became.
And it's okay to fail. And it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to not be good at something, and to have deficiencies, as long as you work on them. Right. A lot. I think we all think we're supposed to be perfect. We're not. They're not. You can't be perfect. That's not what human beings are.
Right.
We're flawed.
Yeah, exactly. And the more I guess. Yeah, that's really true. Accepting my mistakes and embracing them, embracing my feelings, and embracing my poverties. Yeah. My pride, my ego, my insecurities, my fears, my judgments. And kind of and loving myself for them, and then loving other people and accepting them too for theirs. Because I can be quick to judge, sometimes negatively, sometimes in other ways. But that's something I try to. I still got to work. I still got a lot of work to do.
Oh, no, it's
never
not,
ends.
You've crossed the finish line. There's no top of the mountain.
Right.
You're just climbing more and more.
Right, exactly.
And were there a lot of Americans in there?
There were. So because of Florida and Alabama, we had a lot of Americans. So we would typically, a lot of us would start in America and spend about a year there, which gave me a really good foundation for at least, sharing my reactions, receiving correction, and then going to Europe, where it was a lot harder for us, particularly for Americans,
Well, this is why I ask, because I feel like Americans, number one, we're brought up with this idea that we're unbeatable. Oh, yeah. We've never lost a war, except for Vietnam. That one doesn't count. But in our psyche, we've never been conquered. We've never, we don't have a history where, like, the country next to us, Canada didn't come in and pillage us for 300 years, like a lot of other nations have.
Right.
And we have this undefeatable mindset of, I can always bomb it away or I can buy it away and I don't ever have to feel it. And this arrogance of, and also an inability to deal with emotions.
Yeah. It was weird. So when I got over there and I started living with these guys, and and we're not just kind of in a superficial way living with each other, we're getting into each other's stuff, and you would see how different cultures affected the fruit of their culture, the people of their culture. And I got a sense of what Europeans thought about Americans. There was plenty of them who didn't like Americans. But it wasn't so, and a lot of us as Americans, because this is how we think it's all political, which is stupid and American. It fits the stereotype. A lot of them, it's cultural. The Italians are cultural people. When they sit down at a table, they don't want to know who you voted for. They want to know who you are. And as an American, we have our certain characteristics, and we're superficial. Yeah, we don't get in. The Italians will get into they'll tell you how they feel. They'll engage more, and they're not as afraid of it. And they let it out a little bit more. It's interesting. You know, it was they're more free, I think, to a certain extent than something, particularly Irish Americans.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like they communicate and they say, this is who I am as a person. Whereas in America, a lot of us haven't figured that out because we can't communicate.
Right.
So you're a single guy too, as we and I've talked. And when you're on a dating app, you'll come across someone and it's just like, I am anarcho-syndicalist, pansexual, and they list their genders, sexualities, political identities, political affiliations, their job. And it's like, but who are you?
Right. Exactly.
I don't know who you are. That doesn't tell me who you are.
Exactly. Those are more superficial. It doesn't get into your heart.
That's not a human soul.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so and even too with our money and our materials, we hide behind those.
We always ask, what do you do? I guess it's such a weird, because that should come later on.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
We I think that we've done this as a country. We wanted to escape hierarchy the way the Europeans had it traditionally, you know, throughout the era. And we became what we didn't want to be, because now we think of how we treat someone. If you're a burger flipper, right? Or if you work that job, he's a blue collar guy. He works in a factory.
Right.
He works at a fast food place.
Right.
I'm an accountant. Or you're an accountant. Well, I'm a CEO. I'm higher than you.
Right. There is that. We absolutely have that. You know, we have our classes, so to speak, you know, and I mean, it's really true. And I, you know, the materialism thing, and I fall into it too. You know, I like good things and nice things, and I fall into some of the traps. It was really hard coming back. You know,
yeah,
after
what was
living
that like?
Oh my God.
Going from living the way people did for all of eternity, which is farming and working on their own home and being a part of a tribe. I think this community and tribe, and that's why we fundamentally have such a problem here. Is we don't, and in the modern era, it's not about being part of a community. It's about how much shit you can buy.
Right. How much shit you can buy, who you affiliate with, whatever politically and there it was just like, it was such a rich experience to be engaged the way we were on an emotional, spiritual level, fighting, arguing, helping each other, getting to know each other in a deep, profound way. And just, I mean, you just see life there. And it's interesting because, and everyone, particularly the parents, will reflect on this after they've seen you in the community. The first thing they say is, look at his eyes. Oh my God. I mean, not only, when you're an addict, your eyes become sick, but the brightness of the eyes. And I look back at my pictures when I was there too, and compare it to now, because when you're so engaged and then there's some prayer there, there's a spiritual richness there. It's just an incredible look that people have in their eyes, and it's the window of the soul. And then I come back to America and you see people, you can see people running around chasing the material items, and I do too. There's just a different look in people's eyes, and it was hard. I had culture shock coming back to the United States, my own country.
What was the hardest thing for you coming back to, modern civilization, for lack of a better term?
Well, and I guess I would have to say specifically Boston, because it was the first place I came to.
Oh, so you, I don't think we glossed over this, but you were living in a church.
Right. I was living in the rectory of a church for about a year.
In the North End, right?
Yeah. Well, Old West End.
Yeah.
Right.
In downtown.
Close enough to the North End. Yeah, and it was great. It gave me a little bit of a transition, and it helped me because I had no money.
And this was set up through the program?
Yeah, actually, a good friend of mine, Jim Wahlberg, one of the Wahlbergs in Boston, really good guy, helped me find this place and connect me with this priest, Father Joe White, who does a lot of work with addiction in and around Boston. And, they let me come there and live there and kind of help out around the church a little bit. And then, I started working with another guy, Andy LaValle, who has done a lot of work in the Catholic Church. He's a good guy. He owns a bakery in Waltham. So I would take the train from the North End to Waltham every day and work with him. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I found the Union, which was great. The Union was it was a perfect transition. It was the kind of work I liked to do. It felt good. Gave me some time to kind of adjust to Boston, because Boston, I'm living in a place where we're engaged and talking all the time, and you come to Boston, people are like, you sit on the subway and like, don't look at me. Who are you talking to?
What are you looking at?
Right.
Yeah,
are you smiling at me? What the fuck is your problem?
Are you gay? That's exactly that. Boston could be summed up in two phrases. It's, what are you gay? Or what do you think, you're better than me? It's those two. It's
right.
In a nutshell, there isn't that high. There isn't that communication. Right. I want to I want to punch your face. I had noticed it when I come back here after living in New York, because people are like, New Yorkers are angry. They get nothing on Bostonians.
Oh,
nothing.
No, I know.
I have conversations in elevators, in buildings, on the trains. I walk into a pub in Boston, and all I can think is, I can feel someone in the bar wanting to sucker punch me. As soon as I walk in, you can feel it, and I go, someone in here wants to hit my face.
It is the truth. I dated a girl when I first got here. I met a girl like a month or two later, and I hadn't been in New York for years, 10 years, I don't know. And I'd been here in Boston for like 9-10 months, and we took a trip to New York, and I actually did a gig at Madison Square Garden. It was the salsa concert. It was fun. But we went down there, and then we separated while I was working. Then we got back together that night, and we noticed, we were like, man, people here are so friendly in New York. We were both stunned. I was stunned too. It's like New Yorkers are still direct like Bostonians, but they'll engage and speak to you actually, as opposed to Bostonians who just won't, they don't have the time of day. They don't care. No. It's just, it was interesting. New York is great.
We live up to our stereotype, and I think a lot of us get locked into it, and it's not a positive thing. Like, it's good to be hard, but we interpret anger as strength, and that's not what it is.
Correct. It is. It's a weakness.
It is.
Because somebody can press your buttons anytime.
That was the big thing for me, because I was so filled with rage and anger. It consumed my soul. I remember going to therapy, which I never thought I would do. And I remember, I got out of a similar situation when my therapist was this older gay dude with a W.B. Mason curly Q mustache. And I sit down and I go, I want to rip your mustache off your face. I was so angry. And he was giving me wisdom. He was calling me out on my stuff. And he goes, look, I'm not trying to fight with you. Are you here because you want to be better? And I go, I am. He goes, all right, then let's do this. And he was raw with me. And I remember, what was it? He goes, Mike, you're so angry. You realize that's an emotion, right? And it's not it's a weakness. He goes, anyone can pull your strings. And that's when it hit me. And I go, oh, dude, I'm not in charge. I've been manipulated my whole life.
Right, exactly. I mean, I saw that too with me where, and we would see this with certain guys because they would, in the community, I learned there's a lot of provocation. Guys would just want to see if they can press your buttons, and they'll mess around with you. And so there were some guys who were doing a good walk and trying, and some guys who just enjoyed messing around. And so, you could see how, the anger I could see how my anger was a weakness, and my pride and ego were a weakness, really.
I remember one of my most proud times when I moved to New York, and I had several bums try and fight me. And I remember walking away from a couple of them.
You had several bums trying to fight you?
Dude, I had a fist fight with a bum in Brooklyn at 3:30 in the morning on the A train in like a hood-ass station because he said he was going to spit on me. And I was like, all right. I threw him, and he almost fell in the train tracks. And he walks over. I'm sitting there on my iPad, and he just goes, what's up, you fucking white redneck? He goes, your train's here. And I go, that's not my train, because the train's pulled out. He goes, your train's here. And I go, that's not my train. He goes, I'm going to spit on you. And I go, oh, well, now I'm fighting you. All right, I'm not getting spit on.
Right.
And I stand up, and he goes, I'm with it. He puts up his hands, and I just grab him, and I throw him. And he flies back, and he's like a cartoon character on the edge of a cliff, dangling over the tracks. And I'm like, please don't let him fall. Please don't let him fall. And I end up taking... in a fit of rage, he goes, don't you touch that. So I take his stuff. I throw it in the tracks. I swing at him. He dies. Nimble guy. And then I boot him in the ass. And I'm like, that was when I couldn't get out of. But I was like taking the train late hours to really make as a comedian every night. So I was always in these situations. I'm walking the streets. I'm hustling. I remember a couple of times dudes trying to start fights with me on the street, trying to punk me. And my whole life, I was like, you ain't fucking punking me. I ain't a bitch. My pride, my ego.
Southie, too. You grew up
because,
Southie.
well, if you get punked, then everyone punks you.
Right.
You're a victim. And everyone knows
Yeah.
if you don't stand up for yourself, you get eaten up. It's prison. It's a prison mentality. And most rough inner city neighborhoods are governed like a prison. And if you get taken, you get permanently taken. That's one of the reasons we don't show emotions. We couldn't show emotions. Is because if you show emotions in a hood, it makes you weak.
Right.
And then people take advantage of you and they break you. And I remember watching the anger in these dudes, and I saw myself in them. And I go, these guys are bums. They have nothing. One of them had just gotten out of prison. You know, he threatened to stab me. And he dropped his knife, and I laughed in his face. But I remember this happening and being like, I would have thrown my life away. And for the first time in my life, I'm sober now. I have something to live for. If I was still drinking, I'd fought these dudes.
Right. Imagine that too. Like when I entered community too, I was at such a state of rage that even a minor fender bender, I could have got out of my car and either killed someone or tried to kill them. Maybe I got killed if they had, I can understand why people snap. You know, again, like they get filled up, all these reactions, all these issues, and maybe it's over a course of years and they're not addressing it and they snap, they lose it. And I mean, I'm kind of grateful. You know, I know some other people who've gone to jail because they snapped or they lost it. And
that could have been me easily.
Yeah, it could have been me too. You know,
I could have ended up with some bullet wounds or some stab wounds.
Right.
And I remember thinking like, I could have thrown my life away over nothing.
Exactly.
And then I go, oh, what really got to me is I remember both of them were like dudes they were in neighborhoods that are gentrified. And they were filled with rage. And I looked at them and I go, oh my God, that's me. I was the same way. I was losing my neighborhood in Boston. I was losing Southie. And I've got my own family issues that I'm dealing with. I'm losing my family. I'm losing my identity. I'm losing my home and my community. And I don't know what to do. And all I can do is be filled with rage. And I go, you're me. You're me. I saw myself in them and I go, oh, and I remember just having that moment where I was like, oh my God, I grew up. It happened. Like I've crossed over where I can look at a potential enemy and see my own soul in his.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I've had that kind of situation yet where, I mean, yeah, I guess to a certain extent too, I see young people making mistakes, but yeah, that's kind of interesting.
I saw the same rage. Well, that's part of what community having tribe does is it lets you see people for who they are. You get to communicate. That's why, like you were just in Turkey, I was in Florida. When you get to talk with people, like what we're doing, this is powerful, man. This connection, what this is, and my fear is that it might be lost with the way we move forward. I know. Is that we can't get together as groups and realize that my fellow man is a man.
Right.
He's not a monster. He's not a demon. He's a man.
Right. I know. It is kind of dangerous. It's a crazy time right now.
He's not just a person typing stuff on Twitter from a different political party.
Right. Exactly. Thank God. I don't know what I would have done if I had gone through my addiction in a time like this. God.
That's horrible. One of the reasons why I really wanted to do this is relapse is up 30% right now in America.
God. Yeah. We lost a guy from the local. Oh,
did we?
Bubba.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I knew Bubba. It was a shame. We've lost a lot. When I look back at the amount of guys we work with who went that way, or the people I went to school with, and how common it is for me to go to wakes and funerals for people who, and I consider overdosing a form of suicide. It's just a longer form of suicide in a way, because you don't want to live.
Right.
And it's and these things happen, especially now. People aren't working. People are looking for a purpose. And if I can't leave my house, I'm not a part of a community.
Oh my God. Yeah. And if you're stuck with all this rage, if you're in these states and you don't, like where I was so blind, I had no idea. If I'm stuck at home in an apartment by myself, quarantining, like people in California right now, I don't know how you going to do that if you're an addict. It's so hard.
I actually went back there. I went back to that state temporarily for several months. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done to get out of it.
I can imagine.
And I didn't want to use, but I had that. I was the addict again.
Right.
And it scared the fuck out of me.
Right.
And I was filled with that rage. And it was because I had no control. Right. I lost everything. And I was like, I'm just looking for enemies. And it was pretty easy because we've been made to look at our fellow Americans as enemies.
Right.
It's hard to get around that, especially when that's all you're taught on the news every day. It's all you see on social media. There's nothing else going on in the world other than people fighting in the streets. And I went back there, man. And I thankfully got out of it. One of the things that had helped me was doing this podcast. And I get out helping other people is what helps me.
Exactly. I mean, and talking about this, and thank you too, because I haven't talked about it like this in a long time, all my stuff, because it's, I did a lot of testimonies. I went to Quebec, I went to Italy with a group, and it was always good to get out and talk about me and my stuff and the things I did in the past and my mistakes, whatever, because it's just cathartic. I don't know. It feels good for sure. And if somebody can get something out of it, it feels even better. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, so for me too, what I do now, thankfully I've been doing real estate, which has been great. So I get out there a lot, obviously there's a lot of social distancing and masks when you're going to meet people or go to houses. It's a little trickier. It's a little bit more work, but I have something to do. Thank God. A lot of people don't have work, and I feel terrible for them, but I mean, this work has kept me going. I try to stay involved a little bit with my church, and going to mass for me is great. I feel peace there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but is your faith, was that fundamental to your recovery and your sense of peace?
Yeah. It was. I mean, it obviously, I kind of look back on it now, like look at everything I went through, coming to Medjugorje, reading this book, coming to Medjugorje, doing some of the things I did, going to the Camino Santiago. I went to India too. I forget to talk about that, but going to the community too. I mean, how can I not look back on everything I've experienced, from going from almost overdosing in my car and dying to all of this and not believe? What kind of man am I going to be like, it's just a coincidence, really? I mean, I'd be a weak man to not see. I mean, this is my life experience. This is what's happened to me. And so, yeah, I mean, and my faith, it grew, but I also saw how weak it is too. It's interesting, God, I'm not going to pretend to be like some saint, and I'm not at all. But I saw my faith is weak. It can be shaken easy. If something doesn't go my way, and that's when I pray now, it's not to get what I want. It's just to have more peace. And I try to pray for other people and my family and things that I care about. And it's not about getting what I want when I want it, how I want it, because life doesn't work that way. I don't understand it all. It's above me. With my little pea brain, I can't understand. I don't have the capacity to understand God.
You don't have to.
And I don't. That's exactly right. And I can just be at peace. Just, the praying can kind of center me and kind of give me peace. It really does. It's not a panacea always. It doesn't, I don't have mystical experiences. I'm not seeing. I went to go to this place where these people are seeing the Virgin Mary. I didn't, that's for sure. I'm not that holy. You know what I'm saying? I'm just, but it helped me for sure. I mean, it did. And it's sad to see what the Catholic Church is in the United States and Boston. It's a mess.
Yeah, it's falling apart.
There's no spirituality in the church. It's all mechanical and dry. And there's, you think that's where you'd find spirituality, but it's in a terrible state.
You ever go to like a black church, like a black Protestant church, and they're singing and dancing,
they're alive.
and life. And European Catholic Church is different.
There is. It's really interesting. The Italian churches are very. First of all, the cathedrals are just gorgeous, beautiful. In Boston, we got nothing like it. It's sad.
Church here is miserable.
Yeah, they're all Puritan-y too. It's like a weird. I just walk in and just the energy and the vibe I don't like at all.
Isn't it that they're weird energy? Like I'm a bad person as soon as you walk in.
Correct. Yeah, it's weird. When I go to Montreal, for example, I went to Montreal. Beautiful cathedrals, beautiful churches, and a beautiful kind of peaceful, tranquil, merciful energy that I would get in a lot of these. Particularly the Oratory of St. Joseph is one of the most, it reminded me of Europe when I was there. I loved it. And Boston just, it's in a bad, sad state right now. It really is. But Italy, so I would see like the Italian Mass or the church, there's a certain reflection of their particular culture that you'd see within the Mass and the way they live church and the way they live their, particular parish or whatever. It was interesting. And our community had our own kind of spirituality to a certain extent, which really became, foundational for me, praying the Rosary. We did it 3 times a day, it's a lot, and there's a lot of times where, I wasn't always like, hey, great, we're going to go pray or, getting on my knees on the concrete for a half hour, like, God, here we go.
It's work.
I really got to pray again, man. I don't want to do, but there was fruit. There was fruit with it too. I felt more peace. Something happened. I can't quite quantify it. I can't measure it, but I
I know what
felt
you're
more
saying.
peace.
I've tried to describe it before because I grew up atheist. I didn't have faith or anything like that. And I felt like I was severed from something. I didn't notice until I had it. And I'm not a Christian. I believe in what Christ said. I'm not a part of the organized religion, but I consider myself to be agnostic or spiritual. But when I was going through stuff, faith in the universe, in myself, that I had a faith that would work out. And if I put in the work, it will come to fruition. A sense of faith that things will work and that in my place in all of this. I don't know how to explain it or put into words, but I can only describe it as a faith. Right. That's how I get up in the morning. Right. When my life was in the gutter, it was a faith that I will fix this, a faith within the universe, in my place within it. And it filled a void in me that I didn't realize was there.
Right. I agree. I think it does. It gave me, and I think I always kind of believed deep down in my heart, it was just there that I believed in a God for whatever reason. But I think it gives a certain purpose. It helped me to feel that there is a greater meaning and to all of this. And again, I don't have to understand. And sometimes I went through the process of trying to understand, creation and how it all worked and how did God create the universe. But, it's just wasted. I don't need to know that. No. To live a good life. I don't need to completely understand that and wrap my brain around, is Genesis real? Is there really a Garden of Eden? Was Adam and Eve real? Was it crap? I don't need that to live a good life and to get what I get from going to mass or praying is what I need. That's what I need, and being a part of it and being a part of, the other people around me, although it's kind of weird now in church. And, but I still talk to the guys who I was with in Europe, a lot. We have a reunion down in Florida twice a year, and I go and see a lot of the guys, and it's great. There's a bonding that we all had that.
Yeah, it's a powerful experience.
Really. I mean, you get to know these guys every part of their lives, every part of their character, and you see them go through hell while I go through hell. And, it's completely bonding.
Was there a moment where you feel like it clicked for you while you were in this program with your addiction or whatever it was that was ailing you, where you realized, oh, I'm over? Because it's not when you go through the withdrawals, it's not like, oh, I'm free.
Right.
That's when you get to address. All right. That's when you get to address what's going on. That's when you wake up, as people call it. Was there a moment where it hit you?
That's a good question. I don't think there really was. I remember the moments that I remember most. I was thinking I was going to go there for 3 months initially. Like, okay, I'm going to go there for 3 months and try it out. But after 3 months, I had experienced so much and I grew so much. And the days really flew by. The weeks flew by. The days kind of dragged on. Yeah. But time moved fast because we were so busy all day. We're working. We're doing stuff. And we're not sitting around hanging out on a couch, which was good, which was very healthy for us to be productive, to see, how work is, it helps us to grow and to feel good about ourselves and doing good work, not just work. And you became better at doing work and being productive and being helpful, being a teammate and a guy who could be looked upon to be helpful and a leader or something like this, But was there a moment where I realized, I'm not craving? I really, to be honest, I didn't have cravings at all once I started. Yeah. And not that I was like, I realized, hey, it's over. No, it wasn't that kind of realization. And part of that, again, is because we're so busy, you don't have time to think, which is smart, which is really smart, because that just keeps you going and going. I mean, it was exhausting the first few days because we get up at 6 a.m. We're in the chapel at 6:15 on our knees, humbling, exhausting, praying a rosary on the concrete. And then we're working all day, going out, we're doing landscaping, we're in the garden, we're chopping wood, we're in the kitchen, we're milking cows, we're tending to pigs and to chickens, and building construction, we're building houses, something, and staying active. And, some older guys around to try and push us. And that was a big part of it later on after I had 3 and 4 years, is to try and be an example and push these other guys.
Because you stayed for an extra year, didn't you?
Yeah, I was thinking after 3 years, a lot of guys leave after 3 years. And I wanted to stay a little bit longer. I felt I needed it, and I felt it was good for me, because I got to a point where I was in France and I had more of a leadership position in this fraternity of 45 guys, along with a couple other guys. And, but I was in the kitchen, I was cooking. I had to kind of watch all the younger guys and give them correction all the time, which was exhausting. And guys, then I knew they'd resent me, and it was just heavy, they go and say, these guys are going to have the same reaction I had with these other guys, a few years ago. And then I was doing welcoming, so any pilgrims that, all these Spanish, Italians, Germans, Polish, whatever, would come, and our guys would give a testimony and talk about what we did. And we would get a lot of donations too for food, because this is what we needed to live on. And I would have to go welcome them, try and help get that organized. So I'm running around trying to cook, trying to do this, they overwhelmed me purposely to push me to the limit of what I could do. Right. And then I was getting confrontation all the time. I was going out to do welcoming and bring all these pilgrims in and get them. And somebody comes, you got to be in the kitchen. What are you doing? We got lunch in 20 minutes. I go back in the kitchen. Somebody, hey, you need to be doing welcoming. What are you doing? That's your job, And so I would just stay in silence and just, suffer with it. Then I'd have to go share the reactions, which is the way to kind of empty that cup that's overflowing, talk about what I was feeling and apologize. And it was exhausting, but it was good because it helped to build me up and see how much I could do. Then I was answering the phone was the worst. That phone was ringing off the hook. French, Italian, Spanish. I speak Italian fairly well. My French was meh. It was okay. But Spanish, it was crazy. A cardinal called once, Cardinal Schönbrunn from Austria, Vienna. And he was wishing a happy birthday to this monk that was staying with us. So he called and he was like, I was like, Comunità Cenacolo, bonjour, bonjour. And he was speaking in French. And then I thought he said cardinal, and I was like, wait a minute, can you speak Italian? I was like, probably Italiano. He said, ma certo, but I can speak English for you if you. So it was funny, a funny moment. But that phone was exhausting.
Yeah.
So it was good, but again, they pushed me, and I could have handled that in year 1, year 2.
Were you happy?
Oh, yeah, I was. I suffered, but I was happy too. But then by that time I learned that that's normal. Of course you're going to suffer. It's good for me.
But it's part of the suffering and the happiness go hand in hand.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to gloss over this before we end. We're getting around that point, but what happened in India? Oh
yeah. So, before I entered the community, I went to India. Again, I was trying to find the answers on my own. I wanted to do it my way. I wanted to do this. So I figured, I could deal with some of my selfishness that I knew I had by going to India, volunteering with Mother Teresa's organization in Calcutta. But I wasn't, I shouldn't have done I did it. And in fact, it probably was worthwhile. I was volunteering to work with old men in the morning from 6 a.m. till noon. They were all close to death because these houses in Calcutta would only take in the sickest of the sick people. And these elderly men, we'd come in, we'd shave them. A lot of arthritic men, we'd kind of work their joints and then we would feed them and bathe them and then do a couple other little things and then we'd leave. And it was good for me. That was very healthy for me. But to see the poverty, the material poverty in Calcutta was shocking. Shocking. I was stunned. And then the number of people too, just in the train stations, the airport, I was overwhelmed with the number of people. But it was interesting. And I think it took me a couple of years to realize that I was seeing the difference between material poverty and spiritual poverty, right?
Yeah.
It took me time. So it was kind of interesting. I saw this, and then as I began to reflect on what I was there doing, and I kind of thought at the time maybe it was a mistake, but then I began to see, because I'd see these little kids running around with one shoe on and a raggedy T-shirt, maybe naked below. You saw a lot of nudity, and but these kids would be happy. They'd be smiling. They have no possessions. They live on the streets. They're out there. They're playing cricket and stuff, and they're smiling. They're happy, and they were coming up and engaging me, and just joyful for the most part. And here you got kids in America with a pile of toys in the corner, and they're unhappy.
He's got a PlayStation 5 and he still hates himself and his mother.
Right. So, it took me some time, but I think that was the big lesson for me that I saw there.
This is something I've liked to talk about is that, I don't like it, but it's important to talk about is that, and I've noticed this is such a flaw with that happens with I had this issue with my parents, or a lot of immigrant kids have the same issue is, other countries have horrific poverty, right? Like financial poverty, material poverty. America is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. We have some of the worst spiritual poverty in the world. Mm-hmm. We don't have a sense of self, a sense of love. We don't have a spirit. And
right.
a lot of people come here because they don't realize, oh, I have something. And ideally you want to have both. That's a perfect world. And I had this with my parents, and I've seen it with a lot of friends of mine who have immigrant parents, where they're like, no, you're going to get this perfect job and everything's going to be okay. No, that's why we have so many rich people who still kill themselves.
Right.
Celebrities are still addicted to heroin. They still commit suicide.
Right. It's interesting, and I had a chance to see that too in a place like, again, Medjugorje is dirt poor too. In Bosnia, they're poor, coming out of communism, they came out, but they're still it's a poor country. But they live a rich faith, and there's a deep sense of community amongst the people. And that was so beautiful to see compared to Americans, and, the way the Italians engage, but the way they did in Bosnia and Croatia too. There's such less judgmentalism and cynicism, sarcasm, these kinds of things passive aggressive kind of behavior that we as Americans engage in all the time. And it was refreshing. But it was interesting to see. I mean, Western culture, we're just heading in this direction of our God as materialism. And it was kind of, Mary, I read a lot of these messages that she gave to these kids. And it was an interesting one where she said, the people in the East, the Russian people will come to glorify God the most, and the Western culture has lost its way, and the materialism is their God. And this was said in 1981, though, or 82, really early on, and it confused everyone because Russia was still communist.
Yeah.
And they were atheists for the most part, although, the Eastern Orthodox Church survived and it was kind of tolerated. Mm-hmm. But now, so I went on my trip to Ukraine and saw the Eastern Orthodox Church, and I saw it. And it was amazing, the kind of faith that the people had there. For example, I went out to all these restaurants. I was there for Holy Week. It was their Easter week, which is the week after the Catholic Easter. Mm-hmm. And every restaurant had a fasting menu every restaurant I went to. In the United States, you'd never see that,
No, it'd be supersized.
Absolutely not. And I was blown away. Then I went to this Easter celebration with a couple friends that I had met, and it was beautiful. And it was 5 hours, and the place was packed, and everyone was joyful. I mean, and then they had a party till like 9 a.m. afterwards. They were all doing toasts and eating lots of food, and it was community, and it was beautiful. And it's something that I haven't experienced here in a long time since I was in my community in Europe. Easter here isn't, the faith here is just, it's not good. It's not good.
Buy stuff. It's about,
Correct.
It's about, this is something I had to learn. And it's not about buying the right present. It's about being there for someone.
Right.
You don't buy friendship. You don't buy love. And at the end of the day, and you experience this when you're dating women, you can buy them nice things. They want you to do stuff for them, personal to them. Right. That's when they're happy. It's not when you make them something unique.
Right. And if she's somebody who wants you to buy stuff, then you got the wrong one.
Yeah, you're in the wrong situation.
Right.
That's something I've noticed with us is we got really caught up in our materialism, and I've never seen someone chase that and it come out well. Right.
It's true. And look, it's so easy that temptation, that desire. I mean, I kind of recognize it in myself, but I fall into it all the time. I still fall into that. Oh, yeah, I like that thing. I want to buy this. I want to buy that. I'd like this car or this house. And, I work in real estate, so I see it all the time. I'm living in it. And it's hard to discipline myself. I don't want to say that, because I fall into it, I'm not as spiritually rich. I'm not experiencing life the same way I was in community. It's something I think I got to work on, really.
Mm-hmm. It's true. I mean, it's one thing we're lacking, and hopefully, I think people are coming to terms with it. I think slowly or on an individual basis, as people are realizing. I've had interactions. I was just hiking the other day, and I ran into a woman. We had a long talk about this, just randomly. I go, oh, this can still happen. I'm not alone. There's other people out there who feel the same way, and I hope people listening to this get that from hearing your story.
Right.
And what was your biggest adjustment when you came back for that?
Boy, man, it was so hard.
Must have been like coming out of a time machine.
It was crazy. And the world gotten a little bit darker, and then it's still like, you look at what's going on.
It's getting darker.
Look at this past summer, look at the COVID, but the riots were, I mean, wow. But what was the hardest thing, man? It was all hard. Like making friends in Boston was tough. Boston's tough. People are cold. That was very hard.
Yeah, it is, man.
I mean, the union was good for that. And the work was really good for that. But I had a couple guys that came from community and were living with me in that rectory too, which really helped. But, it was just like, I can imagine people coming out of jail and readjusting to normal life. Like now I'm kind of thinking of the Shawshank Redemption. Remember how that, he was working at a grocery store at the end, Morgan Freeman's character. And like, he just, struggled.
Get back into it.
Right. It wasn't like, it wasn't quite like that, but it was just, man, it was hard. It was just culture shock. I judged a lot of things I didn't like. And then I tried to just, see that I was judging, and that was my issue. And try to be at peace with where the universe is and how people are. And, there's nothing I can do. I can be upset about it, or I can choose to overcome it and have a good day and forgive everyone else or anyone else for their poverties, because I'm full of them myself.
Yeah. I think that's the most important thing is realizing that your reaction is on you.
Because American culture doesn't teach that.
No, they don't.
I'm offended and it's your fault. You have to change. The universe has to change to meet my emotional needs. This is what kids and American culture is teaching. And it is so toxic. It is so toxic. It bothers me. And I realize, like, again, I have no control over it. All I can do is share my story and tell people what I think in a way that's not, malicious or hurtful, if the opportunity presents itself, if it's a friend. But, it's just, our culture is really teaching some toxic emotional behaviors.
It is.
If you're learning how to live life, some of the Italians would say, you guys, Americans learn how to live life by watching Hollywood. What do these people know? You guys are idiots, really.
We think TV is the real world.
Exactly. And it's not. Oh my God. Everybody wants to be the Kardashians or something. Again, the materialism too. That's how people, the television is very,
It's about followers, man.
Yeah.
We equate followers. We if you ask most people, they'd rather have followers than have love or friends or family or a woman or a boyfriend or a husband or whatever, more than anything. So we've made that our God.
I know.
That's our new God. I don't want to wrap this up. Because we talked about, so did you ever meet the woman who started this all?
Mother Elvira? Yeah, I was around her a few times. And so when I was in Europe for 3 years in the organization. Every summer we would have this huge festival in the city where she founded the organization in Saluzzo, Italy, in Piemonte. It's close to Turin, Torino. And it sits on this beautiful hill, which is like a small mountain that overlooks, I think, the Po River Valley, which is the most fertile valley in Italy. It runs from like Turin all the way to Venice. It's a beautiful view. And we would have this festival, and guys and girls and men and women and parents from all over the world would come together for a weekend. And it was amazing because, I would see a guy that I was with in America, and I'd been in France, and he'd been in Medjugorje in Bosnia, and we'd come together after 2 years, and you'd see how much they grew and changed. And so Mother Elvira, that was her time to shine. But she had a stroke shortly before I entered the community, and she lost her ability to speak. And she was a powerful speaker. But she could, they still brought her to the fest, and she couldn't talk like she used to. She used to, give these long catechisms, but she was great. She had this energy and enthusiasm. It was infectious, And but while I was there, she would come, and she couldn't talk. Then the last year I was there, she had a second stroke, and it was heartbreaking because we saw her, and she just wasn't the same.
Yeah,
and we knew that she was gone, really, And she's still alive, amazingly, with COVID. Oh my God, it was. But she's still alive, and I was around her. I never got a chance to give her a hug, to talk to her much, because when she was there, people were just surrounding her. They talk about when she used to go to Medjugorje in the old days, Mother Elvira, she was like one of the Beatles walking around, because people would just come from all over and hoard her, because she has this energy, this charisma that's just hard to describe. some of the old guys would talk about Mother Elvira looking right into your soul, telling you everything about yourself. I'd love to hear the stories about her because she's just so amazing. They've been following her around. They're going to release a documentary on her when she passes. They've been following her for 5-10 years with a camera crew. Yeah. So that'll happen. And she is amazing. She's a modern day saint. She really is a saint. I tell you, when she passes, I am going to be in Italy for that because it'll be in a scene. I can't imagine how many thousands and thousands and thousands of people will be there for her funeral. But she's an amazing woman. And you'd see the eyes. Again, I talk about the eyes. You'd see Mother Elvira's eyes just boom. It's just bright color, like these powerful eyes, and they're just absorbing everything, every action, every move. She's seeing life. She's on another level, So yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing.
Well, and it's, you did touch on this one thing I want to address is the events, getting together as a community for something. That's something that I miss, and those were my happiest times, getting together for St. Patrick's Day, getting together with family, or throughout all human history, tribes would have days where they would, you wouldn't be able to fight one another, and you'd have everyone get together, and you'd have these things, and how powerful they are to be a part of something. And my hope is that we don't lose that with everything that's going on in the world.
I agree.
I think a lot of people don't realize how powerful these kind of things are. And it's something, even we would feel it in a small sense when we would build concerts. When you're there and there's an energy.
Right. There is that community feeling with the union guys and girls, and it's fun, getting together and, shooting the breeze, but working together and accomplishing a goal. It was one of the most satisfying feelings when we finished a show or a load out, after a long, hard day. So yeah, that is missing. It's missing.
Well, if anyone wants to look into this program, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, I would say look online for Community Cenacolo, or and I don't even know if they're welcoming guys or girls right now because of COVID. But they might be trying to find a way, because I know people are suffering. People are begging to get into this place right now.
People need it now more than they've ever needed it.
Yeah, they do. So there's St. Augustine, Florida, is the American. And Alabama, Birmingham is where Americans can go. And again, it's free, it's free of charge. I would look it up online, and I think there's a phone number there you can call.
Well, it seems
Joyce
like there's also an amazing success ratio compared to everything else, because opioids, heroin is the hardest drug to kick.
Right.
And so many people, unfortunately, never do.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like, I've met other people who came out of here. I met Danny and I met your other friends.
Right.
And you're all on the right track. And it worked.
Yeah. It was amazing. And it just, what this Mother Elvira did was incredible. And I was there 4 years, and, because we don't escape, and you're there facing things, it puts everything on hyperdrive, so like recovery, change, growth, it's as much as you can squeeze out of 4 years as possible, because, and for those guys and girls who make it through AA, it's amazing. I got a friend, Chad, in Florida, who's doing an amazing job. I think he's got 8 years of sobriety. And I admire them, because I couldn't get it that way, but what we get out of the time we're there is maximized. It's not like going to a meeting 1 hour a week, or maybe doing some work during the day. It's nonstop, 24/7. Whether you want to wake up in the morning and do recovery that day or not, it's coming at you. Yeah. Some guy's going to come at you and tell you what he thinks. So, it was amazing.
Well, thanks for coming on it.
Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate it too.
And anyone listening, if 4 years, 3 years, or however it sounds insurmountable, if you want to live, if you want to survive, if you don't want to die from your addiction, or you don't want to lose everything, it's what you got to put in. And it's not always, you don't have to necessarily go through that program. You can go through AA or other things. It's work. It's work. And what you're doing is an enormous task.
Yeah.
And enormous things don't happen overnight. There's no Band-Aid. There's no diet. You got to relearn how to be a person.
Right.
Or you got to learn how to do it for the first time, because sometimes we never really learn to begin with.
Right. Exactly. There's no shortcut.
There's no shortcut. No shortcut in life. And I really do appreciate you coming on here. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, man. I had a great time. It was just good for me to talk about the whole thing again like this. I hadn't done it in a while. So.
Yeah. Well, I hope, and I think it will help people, because it's powerful, man. And a lot of us I can't tell you how many people I know who are using so much right now,
suffering right now,
and just drinking, and all it does is physically reduce your immune system, so you're more likely to get sick.
Right.
It's such an awful
right.
physical and spiritual thing going on.
Right. And if somebody, if there is somebody out there, because maybe they don't know how to spell Cenacolo, or if they can't find it online, if they want to get in contact through, whatever, through YouTube, if they contact you or something like whatever, you can reach out to me.
Yeah. You guys listening know my social media at Mike Bain Comedy, and the podcast has an email. It's gyatpodcast@gmail.com. So feel free if you have any questions. Do you have anything going on? Anything you want to promote? Because what I want to do is help people.
Sure.
And don't ever be ashamed to say, because you're looking to hire someone, I believe, or you're also looking to make sales as a guy in real estate.
Right. Yeah. So I'm a realtor. So anyone out there who's looking, either in the Boston area, I'm going to have my Florida license soon too, who's looking to buy or sell a home, or looking for investment properties, give me a call, or, get a hold of me through you, whatever.
Yeah.
Or they can go to Ed Maher Real Estate on Instagram, for example, Ed Maher, EDMAHER Real Estate, and get a hold of me. And I'd be happy to help anyone with those real estate needs.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. It's good people helping good people, man. I think that your net worth is your network.
Right.
And I want to put people together. And guys, if you're looking for someone in that department, Ed here, he's an amazing guy. Ladies, he's also, 6'4", a 6'4" handsome fella.
Yeah.
Tall, incredibly tall. Ed makes me feel like a midget, and I think I'm 6 feet. But anyway, this was great, man.
Yeah, it was.
And I really appreciate you coming on. And
thank you.
To all my listeners who stuck with us, thank you very much for listening, and I wish you all the best. And I hope this helped either you or if you know someone who needs help, that you can send them in this direction.
Absolutely.
Because it works.
Yep.
And not a lot of things do. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.
With a hood, yeah.